Well, we're starting this really cool series that Pastor Ryan just talked about. It's called The Art of Attraction. So I'm not going to talk about tonight yet because we're going to talk about that for the next half hour. But the next 3 weeks are going to be amazing. So next week is going to be finding and becoming the attractive mate. Rawr. The next one is conflict resolution. We're going to learn how to fight right. Anybody need that training? Believe me, I need that training. And then the last one, and the fourth and last, is making love last long term, which we like to say in our house time, love me long, long time. Right? Okay, let's pray. How about that? So, Father, I thank you so much for this night, this church, and this message, and all of our family here today. We ask that you would bless this message and series and bring strength, understanding, and restoration to any and all past, present, and future relationships. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so let's talk about communication, where it all rises and falls, right? If we could just communicate, things would be so much simpler. So we're going to talk tonight about communication, which really is an art. And we're going to specifically talk about love languages. How many of you have heard about love languages before? About half of you, a little bit more? Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about the research that was done by Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote the book on love languages and subsequently wrote a ton of additional books on the topic. But the book Love Languages, which was written 15 or so years ago, literally outsells itself every single year. So it's still super relevant today, and I highly encourage you all to get a copy and read it together with your mate or with your family, because love languages, if you're a human being, you have a love language. It doesn't matter whether you're married, single, a kid, a teenager, wherever you are, or whatever you are, not wherever you are, that too, but you have a love language. So in high school, I took 4 years of German. You know what they say about foreign language? Use it or lose it. And so I can count to 10 and I can say, I love you. Ich liebe dich. I remember that. And then in college, I took Spanish. And I can talk enough to make people think I can talk Spanish. I can ask you how you're doing and, oh, good, good. And I can talk to 10, but I for sure never forgot te amo. I love you. And several years ago, I was flying home through Chicago O'Hare, which is the big northern Chicago airport, which I try to avoid at all costs. But one day I was flying through there, and I somehow got close to a girl who was flying with her child, a baby really, in a stroller. And I could tell she was frantic, like something was going on. So she didn't speak a word of English. And I just looked at her. I'm like, almost sign languaging, because she couldn't understand me and I couldn't understand her. So I asked for her ticket. And I could see that she was in the wrong terminal. She was in the domestic terminal for the United States, and she was flying international. So I was like, I tried to motion, come with me, let me help you. And somehow my sign language didn't say, come with me, I'm a mass murderer. So she trusted me enough. And I walked her over to the international terminal. And at a distance, her family, which I did not know she had an entire tribe there with her, came running towards her. And they thought that they had lost her. And so she's hugging, and she's obviously telling them what I did. And they're like, loving me back verbally. And she turns to me, and as clear as I'm going to say this to you, she said, I love you. I was shocked. I was speechless. I cried. I was so taken aback. But to me, right then, I recognized that love is the universal language, right? It doesn't matter how you speak it. It's universal. So that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. And the thing about people and love is it's still a people thing, right? It's inside each of us. And research shows that the vast majority of couples marry their opposite, that we're attracted. The old adage is right. We're attracted to our opposite, or opposites attract. And the crazy part about that is what turns us on in the mating season is what turns us off in the real season, right? It's like, Why are you so quiet? Why won't you talk? Why don't you like to go places? Why don't you give me gifts? It's like, I don't know. And so because when we're in a mating season, that is a different season that we're going to talk about. And we're under the influence. And so we don't get credit for all that stuff that we did during that time. Sorry to tell you that news. Then we have no training and very little knowledge about how each other works and about love languages. I mean, if you think about differences, let's just do this. We have gender differences, so boy, girl, right? Then we have generational differences. So about every 20 years, there's a different generation, and every generation speaks differently and talks and communicates. Then we have personality differences. So we have us loud mouths, and then we have the quiet ones. We typically get together, and then we drive each other nuts big time on that. And then we have this love language now. And we have 5 of those that we're like, which one do I speak? Well, we're going to talk about that tonight. But we don't have a lot of training. So hopefully this will not, if you've already heard some of this or read Dr. Chapman's books, that this will just be a refresher course. As we prepare to teach, it's always an awesome preparation or a refresher course for us as well. So it was very fun this last week preparing for this message. But they don't train us up in school for this unless you're training to be a psychologist. But interestingly enough, we're getting ready for this big women's conference. March 23rd, all day long, girls, be there. So in preparation, we've done a lot of video production, which has been so fun. And we did this one production that's called Girls Say the Darndest Things. And it's really off of, remember the old Art Linkletter and then Bill Cosby, that kids say the darndest things. So hysterical. So we have 5 girls that are the ages of 4 to 10 that we're interviewing on camera. And we're asking them questions about, what if you were the mom, what would you do? And just really funny questions. So then we start talking about school and what grade are you in and what's your favorite subject? Well, our own Stacy Rory's daughter, Peyton, was on that panel. And she, her son's going, framing her up. And so the MC asked Peyton, said, what's your favorite subject in school? And she said, problem solving and logic. And the MC just started laughing and go, that's a subject? So the good thing is that was her favorite subject. And the second thing is that it is a subject. So they're teaching up, as young as 10 years old, how to problem solve and use logic. And most of our fights are because we're not problem solving and we're certainly not logical, right? That's when we go crazy. And then we have all the forces against us as we're trying to build these awesome relationships that last a lifetime until death do us part. But we have so many forces. Some of them are our very own. They're completely self-induced because we can't miss out on anything, right? We have to be a part of this club and that club, and we have to go to this event and that event, and we want our kids to be in 16 different things. We don't want them to miss out on anything. And then we get away because the one thing that goes first after just taking care of ourselves is our relationship. It goes in the backseat. It's like, listen, honey, I'll get you when these kids get raised. It's like, by that time, I won't even know your name. So oftentimes we get in our own way in relationships, but then the devil, honey, he loves chaos and confusion. And if it's chaotic and confused, it's not of God. It says it right in the Bible that he is, not the maker of chaos and confusion. So we have all these things fighting against us. And really, at the end of the day, what is love? What is it? I love my kids. I love these shoes. How about you guys? You love your car. You love your job. You love your fill in the blank, my house. I love that movie. Oh, I love pizza. Right? We love, love, love. Today, Tina and I are exchanging emails about one of the sessions at the Y conference, and I sent her back. She sent some information, and I sent it back, and I said, I love it. And I'm like, so I bet out of the 20 times I said the word love today, and several of them where my husband were coming in and out, when he left, we'd say, I love you, love you. But the rest of them were things. And so how do we mix all that up, and how do we separate what's true love, what's in love, and what's real love, right? Because in love, and for those of you who have been married for a while, there's a difference. Because in love means intoxicated, means that you're under the influence of love. And that's a really fun, exciting time. But read my lips, it ain't gonna last forever. That's not real love. Real love is after in love has run its course. That's when real love starts. And so that's what we want to talk about tonight, that if we really want to stay together or get our next relationship that it's going to last forever, or if you're never going to be in another romantic relationship again, just understanding how you love and take in, how you receive love and how you give it out is so important. So we'll talk about that today. So I'm gonna play a quick video for you to kind of lighten the load as we go into the 5 languages. But let's take a listen to this video real quick.
Men and women need each other desperately, but we need a referee. Because there's no fighting in the world that compares to the fight between a man and a woman. And you know that's absolutely true. It's like grudge matches, wrestling, it doesn't matter. The fight between a man and a woman is the ultimate. It is it. So I will take you to one such grudge match right now. In this corner, weighing in at 200 pounds, with a record of 7,000 straight losses, is the man. In this corner, weighing in at an undisclosed weight, that is not her fault due to a low metabolism and 3 pregnancies, with a record of 10,000 straight wins, 3,000 of which the man is not even aware of, is the woman. The woman will not tell the man why they're in the ring tonight. If he does not know, that is his problem. Here are the rules. The man, being the physically stronger of the two, is not allowed to touch the woman. He can only use his strength to protect her. The woman, being the more verbally agile of the two, can rip the man to shreds. That is fine, because the man will not understand for up to 3 days afterward, at which time he'll demand a rematch and lose again. If the man upsets the woman, he must apologize. If the woman upsets the man must apologize. These are the rules, folks. I want you both to remember that you love each other dearly, and as the good book says, you should not go to sleep on your anger. Which means the man cannot sleep until he dies. And fight.
I just thought I'd lighten things up. That's the real deal right there, huh? When I saw that a couple years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, that's real. That's real. So back to the love languages. So Dr. Chapman wrote several books, as I mentioned earlier. I brought several of them today if anybody wants to take a look at them after the service. But there's something for everyone in there, and there are so many free resources online. In fact, if you don't know your love language and you are confused after tonight's message, or you want to validate what you think, go online. You can download this for free on this link, and it's also on your service notes, and you can take a test tonight. So again, they have it for husbands, wives, singles, teens, and kids. So the whole family can participate. It's really awesome. Okay, I want to talk to you about banks and tanks. Banks and tanks. So this is actually a topic that you're all familiar with, even though it's odd that we're talking about banks and tanks at church. But tanks, if you think about the tank in your vehicle, right, the fuel tank, or the tank in your stomach, that's another tank that speaks to us, or our bank account, the funds, whether there's some in there or it's running on empty, we're running on fumes. How does that saying go? The month ends before my checking account, something. Okay, I'll practice that for the next one. Yeah, your money runs out before the month does. There you go. Okay. So anyway, food, fuel, and funds are either being deposited or withdrawn all the time, in, out, in, out, in, out. So if we're hungry, we become hangry. If our vehicle doesn't have the right amount of fluid, it doesn't perform very well, and it eventually stops. Wherever it is, no matter what you're doing, it's done. Right? The same thing happens with us as it relates to our emotional love tank. The crazy part is that when our tanks are empty, everything is amplified. Just think about it for a second. If you're hungry, you have no patience all of a sudden. It's like, dude, dinner's an hour away. I don't care. But, Snickers made a fortune, right, on that, about having a snack. And then when you don't have fuel. And what about, doesn't it work like this at your house? When funds are low, everything breaks. When funds are okay, everything's fine. It's like, what is the deal? So that's why we always have to be prepared and make sure that we are paying attention to our emotional love tank. And so before we even talk about the love languages, I need for you to know that this is how you understand if you are being fed or if you have anything in your love tank. And so the biggest question is, how do you feel loved? That's really how you determine your love tank. So you say on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel loved? Well, if it's not a 10, then there needs to be some work done to understand what is going on to get this to full, because we want to keep our emotional love tank full at all times, not half full or like, yeah, we're doing okay. And there's really a ratio of 5 to 1, that it takes about 5 deposits to offset one, I don't know what you call the opposite of withdrawal. So that's a lot. So we need 5 times more of our love language to keep our tank full, because for every 5, one time something happens, we would deduct 5. So let's talk about what the love languages are. So the first one is words of affirmation. The second one is acts of service. The third is receiving gifts. Then we have quality time, and then the last, physical touch. So the way our tanks are filled is by receiving our own love language in our language. And the way other people's tanks are filled is not necessarily by you loving them the way you receive love. And that's the big difference about love languages, is oftentimes we give love the way we receive love. And we already talked about how oftentimes, or more than not, we're living with someone who's opposite. And so there are 5 different options that they can have. So if you're, like I do, I'm acts of service and my husband's words of affirmation, we have a conflict there, because every time I'm trying to show him love, he is not feeling it, because that's not how he receives it. It's not his language. I literally am speaking in a foreign language to him. So let's talk about each of them briefly. Words of affirmation are just that, words. Words matter. So if you are someone or love someone who has this love language, you have to understand that it is about words. And I can save a lot of marriages, a lot of heartache, if you'll listen up close to this one, girls. So I always grew up understanding what respect was. Respect to me, I just naturally thought it was respect to elders, respect to authority. I'm going to expose myself here. I didn't think about respect towards my husband, because that seemed weird. It's like, respect, he's not my boss. What are we talking about, respect? I love him. But that was wrong and almost a fatal mistake for our marriage. Because what men want more than anything is respect. And what women want more than anything is love. And when you don't understand that their respect is different than love, but that's how they receive it. They want to be respected. They deserve to be respected, and they don't have to earn it. It's one of those things that's like elders, authority, spouses, right? So I love what the theologian Mark Twain said. He said, I can live 2 months on a good compliment. Bet you his love language was words of affirmation. And then the queen of soul, Aretha, she said R-E-S-P-E-C-T. She spelled it out for us, so we knew exactly what was going on. Hi. So respect is a big, big deal. And the ultimate that we all want to hear, that will be the best words that we ever hear, is when we cross over, that we hear God say to us, well done. Well done, my good and faithful servant. That's what we want to strive for our entire life. Whether this is your language or not, that's when you know you pass a test. Here's some advice from kids on marriage. Tell your wife she looks pretty even if she looks like a dump truck. I was saying to myself, I wonder what a woman looks like when she looks like a dump truck to a kid. It's like, are we muddy? Are we like what? What is it? I always look at the weird stuff. Okay, acts of service. So that was my husband's, what we just talked about. Now this is mine, just to get, not that you care, but to give you a frame of reference. In case you want to do something for me, this is how I will feel your love. So acts of service. So acts is part of the word action. That's what it means, action. So when I hear words like, let me do that for you, or what can I help you with, this is when I start feeling loved. Right? So you say, hey, you look good today. That feels good, but that's not how I receive love. It's, hey, how can I help you with this? That's how I feel love. And so we had the ultimate role model, right? I mean, there's nothing that Jesus would not do, but just some of his acts. He calmed the storms. He walked on water to save us. He performed miracles. He washed feet. And then he did the ultimate. He died for us. Washed feet, died for us. That's beginning, end. There's nothing that he wouldn't have done. So acts of service are extremely, extremely important. And in Matthew it says he causes the sun to rise and rain to fall on the just and the unjust. He just keeps on giving after he's gone, right? So acts of service are just that. It's helping out, and it's little things too. It's bringing coffee. I am blessed to brag that I do get coffee delivered to me in bed every morning, and I love it. And then I read, so you do too. Yeah, let me tell you something. If you're living with an acts of service person and they like coffee, honey, you wake them up with that smell, and you'd be a happy, happy spouse. Wink, wink. Okay, receiving gifts. I'll keep it PG. Receiving gifts. So receiving gifts is really a visual symbol of love. And it doesn't have to be expensive gifts. It could be, I picked this dandelion because I wanted to blow this in, because you blow my mind, But the receiver of gifts thrives on the love, thoughtfulness, and effort put forth in the gift. Here's where I was going to talk about gifts, guys. That whole, guys love the Victoria's Secret. It used to be Fredericks of Hollywood before. I'm showing my age. But I always used to say, listen, you bring me home Victoria's Secret, that all stuff that has more straps and strings than anything in the material, I'm going to buy you a fancy jock. And you put your jock on, and I'll put the Victoria's Secret outfit on. Let's do it. I mean, come on, game on, gifts on, right? So, guys, I know that you love that stuff, and it's so sexy, but it's not comfortable. All right, so don't I got you a new pair of pajamas. It's like there's nothing pajama about that. All right, that's for something else. I'm just saying. Okay, so I love it in Luke, and we say this a lot when we're taking offerings, but I love this because this just drives it home that you cannot outgive. But he says, give and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. I mean, that becomes a no-brainer for giving. If you know that it's going to come back to you so full it's overflowing. I mean, picture that. Sounds awesome. And God's put an eternity in the human heart. So there's your gift. This is the easiest love language to learn. So if you are living with or loving someone who speaks this language of gift giving, come on. You have no excuse. Because I already said, and you're like, I don't have the money. I'm like, draw her a picture and give her a card, honey. It's free. This can be free gifts. It's about your intentions. Okay, quality time. Oh, people who speak this language, nothing says I love you like full undivided attention. And it doesn't matter how old. I mean, this is a big one for kids too that we're talking about tonight. But quality time is more than proximity. Just because you're in the room with them does not mean you're spending quality time. When you're giving NBC or Netflix or whatever your quality time. You're not giving each other. So you have to be careful not to try to count that, because to somebody who speaks this language, that doesn't qualify to them. Unless you ask them and they say, yes, this does qualify because you're not gone from the house. So maybe that's a compromise. You're in the room. But, the beauty of this is if you're not in a relationship with someone and you're feeling lonely and quality time is your love language, you need to know that Jesus is always there. There's not a fraction of a millisecond that he is never gone from you. So you always have someone there with you. So just know that. I just want to encourage some of us that are like, okay, you're talking to everybody with couples and I'm not a couple. I'm not just talking to couples, I promise you. This relates to everyone. All right, and then physical touch. Here's the one that I generally get there. Wow, that's me. Woo, yeah. So you need to know that there are many dialects. As it's not all about the bedroom, guys. And girls. But there are some people that are so strong in this language, that speak this so loudly, that this can literally be a deal breaker for them. So you need to be very much in tune with your mate or your loved one if this is something that's important to them. And physical touch comes in all shapes and sizes, right? All of our languages, all of the love languages are only limited by your imagination on how well you can speak it to your loved one, right? Because I think if I were to say, well, I'm acts of service. It doesn't matter whether it's bringing me coffee or asking, hey, can I do the vacuuming this week? Or let me do the dishes, or I'm going to run this trash out, or hey, I took your car and filled it up. Whatever it is, it's different dialects. So don't think it's just one thing. And the same goes with physical touch. So I love, that in the psalmist said, yes, I am always with you. You hold me by my right hand. I love that. And you never know if a physical touch is literally going to be that healing touch that someone needed. Yeah. And I think we need to remember that. We know that Jesus healed and did miracles all the time, but maybe through our touch, we can do the same thing for someone. So don't, just because, I didn't grow up, my family, we didn't do a lot of touching and hugging. It's like, so what? Yeah. So what? Lord, it didn't take any effort or any money to give a hug, a pat, or whatever. All right? So let's just thank you. So let's just run this through talking our language with coffee, using coffee. If you were an acts of service person, you would feel loved if someone said, let me make you a cup of coffee. Quality time. Let's go have some coffee. Words of affirmation. I love you more than coffee. Gift, surprise, I got you coffee. Or touch, first coffee and then a fill in the blank, back rub, hug, whatever. Right? So there are different ways, again, different dialects for each, and it applies to anything and everything. Now, I want to give you one big, ginormous warning. So once you know your love language and the love language of the person you love, do not ever use it in the heat of a fight. It will cause so much damage. So if you know that they like, words of affirmation, then if you use bad words, mean words, ugly words, you are like sucking it out of their tank. In one fight, you could take them from full to empty. 5-1, remember? 5-1. So we have to be super careful. And I super duper caution you about this with kids. So now that you have the link, there's no reason if you have children or grandchildren that you can't have them take their love language quiz. My granddaughter took it today, as a matter of fact, in preparation for tonight. And, my son said, that explains a lot when he saw the results. So and I've had so many people that have lived and been married with people for many, many years and are shocked by the results. So let me just tell you this, when you take the love language quiz, it's going to ask you questions like, would you prefer this or this? Prefer this or that? So you may just answer something because you're like, well, I'm already getting this, right? This is already happening, so I'll pick that because, well, since that's already happening, I'll go with B. But what if A wasn't happening? So you need to pick whatever's the priority in that question, even if it's already happening now, because obviously it's important to you. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so if you want to try to discover your primary love language, and know that some people are bilingual, so you may take the test and score identical numbers at the end for 2 of the 5, and you're just bilingual, which is cool because that makes it very easy for your mate because they have 2 to pick from and not just 1. Right? So if you want to understand what your primary love language is without taking a test, or as you're talking about it afterwards at dinner tonight before you get home to do it, ask yourself these questions. What makes you feel most loved? Or what makes me feel most loved by my mate? Likely that's your primary love language based on the 5 we talked about. What do you most often request of your mate? That again is a sign of what your primary. If you're like, I like for you to, will you take out the trash? Will you do this? Here's a honey-do list for you. Or will you sit here and have coffee with me? What does your mate do or fail to do that hurts you most deeply? That's typically the opposite of what. So if they won't spend time with you, if they won't say nice things, if they don't, touch you, they don't hug you, whatever. That can show you if what you're not getting is something that you do want, that's probably your primary love language. And how do you express your love to your mate? Again, we often give our love how we like to receive it, not even really realizing that we're talking about these love languages. So one of those four, all of those four will help you determine, really without even taking the quiz, but do take the quiz just to validate it. So love's greatest challenge really is loving the unlovely. I mean, a lot of people go, yeah, all this sounds good, but I really can't stand them. I know I'm married to them. I know I live with them, but I really can't stand them. So all you need to do is really listen to what Jesus said. He said, but to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think once you start understanding, and maybe you just decide, you try to figure out what their love language is, and you just try to love them that way. Maybe maybe their tank is so depleted that it's going to take a while. But I promise you, through this love language challenge, there have been worse marriages, I bet, or relationships that you're going through right now. People that were really on their way to the attorney, on their way to court, that they ran across this. There's so many wonderful stories that you could read, actually, if you read Dr. Chapman's books. And then give. We have to be able to give. We have to take the first step. And once again, give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together. Here's your reward to sucking it up and being the one to take the first step. And maybe it's the first 500 steps, but it'll pay off once you both know what your language is. So in the spirit of February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, I just have 14 tips or 14 things to remember. Number 1, don't let your differences pull you apart. Allow them to draw you closer. Really celebrate differences. If we were all the same, this would be the most boring life ever lived, right? It's like we're all a bunch of, Stepford wives or whatever, zombies. It doesn't always come natural to communicate another love language. I want you to feel encouraged if it's like, this just doesn't come natural to me. It won't. Not all things are going to come natural to you, but it's worth it. Never ruin an apology with an excuse. I'm sorry, but if you wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have had to do that, right? The minute you have a but, it disqualifies the apology. Complaining is draining. If you're going to complain, pray it out. Don't spray it out. The grass is greener where you water it. Everyone always thinks, look at their marriage. It's just so good. I wish we could be like them. Listen, we all have our problems behind closed doors. There ain't no perfect marriage. But I will tell you that when you water it and you pay attention to it, it gets better and better and better. Celebrate accomplishments, big or small, whatever they are, in the love language that your mate speaks. Remember that words work both ways. Actions speak louder than words for some of us, and words speak louder than actions for others. So that adage doesn't work across all love languages. Protect your marriage at all times. Maintenance required. That needed to be on all of our marriage certificates or all our first love cards that we send each other. Maintenance required daily. Love won't last unless you're willing to work at it. Sorry to tell you that. But honestly, when I heard some of these things years ago, this was encouraging because, you feel like when you're in the middle of a battle, you feel like you're the only one that's going through this. The number 10, the number of ways to express love within a love language is only limited to your imagination. Being right is not as important as being together. Kiss more, laugh more, play more. Your spouse will never be just like you. So stop trying. I posted this week this saying, and I got more likes than anything I ever have. I said, girls, unless your mate's wearing a diaper, you're not going to change him. But that goes both ways for both genders. You know, unless either of you are wearing a diaper, you're not going to change each other. And last, love is something you do for someone. Okay? So I'm excited. Next week, we'll see you back. We're going to talk about finding and becoming the attractive mate. Is that enough for tonight? All right. Let's say a prayer. How about let's bow our heads. Father, I thank you that you speak our love language every moment of every day. We thank you that you are the perfect model and have already equipped us with everything we need to speak any and all love languages. We thank you that you've restored relationships through this message. And we thank you for helping us love the unlovely. And we thank you that when we're unlovely, you never stop loving us. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay.